Welcome to Chik Chat, the podcast where the girl with many titles talks about life, the good and the bad, and everything around it. We're going to sit, chat, share life stories and experiences, from business to relationship. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Chik Chat podcast. So in this episode, a nice little milestone in my personal life, I have just got to a year with G. So it's been a year since we went on our first date, and funnily enough, we count our first date as our anniversary. So even though he asked me to be his girlfriend a little bit later on, both of us had committed straight away. And I hadn't realised that we were basically the same type of person. So yeah, this one's dedicated to G, and I suppose also to millennials or people dating at the moment that would have felt a bit like me. So I'll go into that in a second, but I will start off with my challenge of the week or my tip of the week. Oh, do you know what? My tip of the week is just to take a second each day, or a few seconds each day, and really take in what's happening. I think we get so lost in just life, and you're always on the go, you're always moving to the next thing, that sometimes if you don't sit and just take a deep breath for 5 seconds, it's really hard to practice gratitude and to realize all the things that you kind of should be grateful for. So yeah, that's my tip of the week. Right, so I picked 3 tips, and I thought I'd start with 3 tips, and if people want me to expand on them, I can do that. But I thought I'd start with the 3 tips because these 3 tips, especially the last one, are the ones that really kind of got me through dating. So for those of you that don't know me, or don't know kind of my past, I was with my ex for 5.5 years. Actually, officially, but we were together nearly 6 years before we broke up. And a month later, I met G, and a year later, I'm living with him, and we're shooting for a TV show, which is just about our lives, which is just the most surreal thing. But yeah, these 3 tips are kind of to anyone that feels it wouldn't even be stuck. It would just be that if you were looking for a sign, I've been there, or you're just kind of feeling like you've just started dating again and you don't know kind of what you're looking out for, or you're just a bit like, what am I supposed to expect? I suppose this is what that advice is about. So the reason I wanted to do this as well is because, like I said, I was in a relationship for 5.5 years, and never in my wildest dreams did I believe that I was, 1, gonna meet someone so quickly, 2, that person would just change everything for me. And this sounds so cliche, but genuinely, this isn't, do I think, yeah, to me, G's the love of my life. And I think you can have different loves of your life, but I have never met anyone that consistently makes me feel the way that he does, that consistently challenges me as a person, as a businesswoman, as a daughter, as a sister, as a partner, in the best kind of way. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be this confident to sit in front of you guys, or people that are listening, to talk about this person that I've only known a year and yet I'm so sure about. Yeah, I can't even believe that these words are coming out of my mouth, because honestly, this time last year, 1, I was in the pits of hell. I was going through the grievance of I was grieving the breakup. I was dealing with a lot of trauma at the same time. I cut myself off from a lot of people for a long time. Just wasn't dealing very well with life and with kind of what was going on. And it makes me feel even emotional talking about it, because I was in such a low place and I felt so lost, and I didn't feel like I could trust my own judgment. And shout out to my brother, because my brother genuinely, I love the kid so much. I'm saying kid as like a grown man with a child, but he's even the one that told me not to cancel on G on our first date. And thank God, because I didn't know the blessings I would have blocked. I've talked a lot on here about manifestation and just the way that I currently see the world. and trying to be more positive, trying to have a mindset that is just more positive in general. And I was sat thinking about this today, thinking if it was up to me, I'd have cancelled our first date today because it was my ex's birthday. And I wouldn't have gone because I was feeling some type of way about my past and not wanting to focus on potentially what could be my future. And if it wasn't for my brother basically saying, think about your future potentially, or you could just go out and it's a distraction for a day, you'll find at least something positive out of the day. And if even if you don't want to see the guy again, at least you've got a story to tell. And that's what convinced me to go. And when I say, like, when I started dating again, my friends would talk about, especially, like, actually, I remember having a conversation with my friend Zyla, and she was talking about, like, dress, how you're comfortable, dress in a way that makes you feel sexy. And I'm someone, like, I don't really put much makeup on. So I started going out on these dates where I wasn't putting makeup on, I wasn't, like, combing out my afro. It was in its natural state. It was shrunken. I was in clothes that made me feel sexy, that made me feel great, that did all this stuff. But yeah, like these aren't even the tips, but just like this is the background. So I'm just gonna jump straight into it. So number one is dating apps are wild, but it doesn't mean that the person that you're looking for is not there. So I was using Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, and I can't even lie. Hinge for me was like the funniest app because there were just people that I was like, are you being serious? Like, this is your dating profile. The things you're like recording yourself saying, this is your dating profile. And I'd talk to someone else on Hinge that just ended up being like a huge letdown. And I was just like, Hinge is not the place for me. Went onto Tinder, people just wanted hookups, and I was like, that's not for me. Bumble was kind of like a bit quiet, a bit alright, and it was just like I was like, what am I doing? I looked at like changing the age range, and it's really funny because Jeannie Lynn missed the mark of where I was cutting people off, and I don't know how I hadn't changed it because I went through a point where I was like, okay, I'm happy dating older men. Like I've never had an issue dating older men. Like G and my ex were both about 7ish years older than me. And my first ex was about 6 years, 5, 6 years older, something like that. So age has never been an issue, but I was looking like 10 years because I thought I might find like someone that also runs their own business. Like my criteria was I want someone that genuinely wants to date, that's emotionally intelligent. It would be a bonus if they'd been to therapy. Um, like they cared about specific things and they saw women as human beings, and I didn't really want someone that drank or that drank very much. So going through the apps, most of the pictures are of like guys um, with like alcohol. And I remember sitting talking to my therapist and being like, I don't know, like I'm gonna have to make some like kind of compromise here, and I know I'm gonna have to make a compromise. However, I don't know what to do because these men on here either like they're not emotionally intelligent or every picture's like them with alcohol, so clearly like they love alcohol. And um it was just really funny because she was like, okay, then why don't you focus more on their bio? Like if you filled out your bio and you've gone to the extent of like putting something in to like try and be a little bit funny or like think about the process you took and then look at what that person's done. Do they look like they've made the same kind of effort? So I was like, okay, pictures that I chose pictures that showed like a variety of the types of things that I'd be into, like the fun side of me, the quieter side, like work life, that kind of thing. And then the bio I had filled out, and then, like, and when I was scrolling through G's pictures, I was like, okay, his pictures aren't like they're clearly like older. They're not the clearest, but do you know what? It looks like there's a mixture again. Like there's a fun side of him joking about. There was him in like I think it was a museum actually. I'm going to talk to him about this because I forgot to ask him because he deleted his after we started dating. He basically deleted everything so quickly that by the time I went to look to see like what our first conversations had been, it was all gone. So I don't really have much to go off. But yeah, I just remember like looking through and being like, okay, the pictures kind of are similar. The bio was filled out. The guy had made an effort. Like he was being funny in the bio. It was very clear that he was smart. And honestly, I can't like I'm talking about this and I'm like, oh, I'm so in love. And this sounds so cringy, but oh yeah, this man gives me butterflies. I love it. But yeah, so I'm looking through the profile. I'm like, okay, he's done a bit of the work. Like, great. Because by that point as well, if you have me on my backup TikTok, Chikumo go and look through some of my older stories from a few months ago where I talk about some of the people I went on dates with, especially the narcissist, because I have like very interesting stories. And I feel like I have stories that really tested me at the time. Like God, the universe, whatever it was testing me and being like, have you learnt your lessons? You said that you want something more, you want something better. Have you learnt your lessons? And I was like, I look back now, I'm like, thank God I did learn my lessons, because I nearly dated someone that clearly needed to be in therapy, but if they'd have been in therapy, they'd have been an amazing person, just couldn't commit. Someone that was a bit of a narcissist, just anyway, yeah, go and check my TikTok. So yeah, obviously the rest of that in terms of like the bio is history, because I chose not to judge him on the normal metrics. Now I've always been like, I met my ex on Tinder as well, but I've always said if there's one of me, surely there's one of someone else that I'm looking for out there that is like me. And like if you do listen to podcasts quite regularly, you'll have heard me say, to me, G is the same person as me but a different flavor. So like that just from the get go, it just completely proves it. Right, moving on to number two. Number two, you will have to do some healing in the relationship. I can't tell you how many times I have been triggered externally in the like because of something that's happened in the relationship, but I used to think that you had to go into a relationship basically being practically healed, and I realized that actually, yes, I'd done the work of being in therapy for the last what 2 years before that, before I met him, and yeah, of course I'd done the work in therapy, and I'd done a lot of the kind of healing, but that didn't mean that I'd done all the healing I needed to do, because like I just said, I'd just come out of a very long-term relationship. I was used to seeing the world in one kind of light. I completely reinvented myself and who I was, and was really getting to know myself, was going on solo dates, was figuring a lot of stuff out at that time. And like I said, I was going through a lot of trauma where it just made me so confused as a person that there was no way I could have done all of that on my own, been perfect, and got into a relationship. But that's kind of what's proven to me as well that G is my person, because not only are we both still doing some work, like G has been to therapy himself, is probably going to go back, um, and same with me. But the way that we discuss things, it's not like, oh, you need to have everything figured out. To me, it's the fact that there's mutual respect in a relationship. We talk very openly about the things that we're comfortable talking about, the things that we're not, and we have a process of like what we want things to look like in our relationship, how we want to grow together, what the future could look like, and even like our fears. And I think maybe that vulnerability at the beginning of that relationship and going into it not wanting to look perfect is maybe what helped me especially, because like on our first date we sat and we talked for hours about some of the deepest things that you'd be like, is this really what you're going to talk about on a first date? Like, you're going to scare the guy off? But I just remember thinking, I honestly don't care if I do, because if I do, then he's not my type of person. Like, I love having deep conversations. I am the type of person that I've just always been like that. I don't like small talk very much. If you're going to sit with me and you're going to you're going to bare your soul, you're going to be vulnerable, you're going to be honest, you're going to come out with interesting things. Like, it wasn't all just like super deep. Some of it was about like comic books, which I'm now sat with comic books behind me. But yeah, it was just like our mutual loves, as well as where like the love came from, and where we are in our lives, like the trauma that we'd had, how we'd grown up. Like, all of it was just, it started off in such a way that I'm now looking at it going, I'm so glad I didn't come into this relationship thinking that I had to have healed and I had to be perfect, because like I was even honest and I just said, like, I am coming into this, I have made a decision to walk away from someone that I cared about so much, and I don't want to go back to them, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be grieving them. And I talked about that, and he was like, okay, I understand. And I was like, what? So yeah, healing, a lot of the healing you go through happens in the relationship, because you're triggered at different times. You're triggered so much. And I think when you have that compassion for yourself, and for your partner when they're triggered, all that does is make you stronger as a couple, which goes into the middle section. How am I doing? So I've kind of been like an intersection, I suppose, in my life where I'm trying to figure out like where I'm going to next. And I feel like I'm in such a like since especially since like we started living together, I'm in such a good space that even when things seem difficult, when I feel a bit stressed, I know that I'm getting the signs that I need to. I know that I'm putting in the work that I need to. I always feel like I could be doing more, and maybe sometimes I can be doing more, but that doesn't mean that I'm not doing what I need to be doing. Like, I can't work 24/7. I need to enjoy life. I want to enjoy life. So, yeah, mentally, I'm in a good place. And even when challenges do come up and I'm struggling, I'm really dealing with that. And like I said, being with someone that's so consistent is challenging because I'm not used to that. But at the same time, like, it's so good for my nervous system. It's so good for me, for my happiness. So, yeah, mentally, I'm in a very good space. And right, finally, um, right. So for my final note, I'd written down it's okay to start again, no matter how invested you were in your relationship or how invested you were in something else. So, like I said, I was with my ex for 5.5 years, going on 6. Everything in me was saying you've spent so much time with this person, you can't walk away now, was one. You can't give up on this person, was two, because I, a part of, I suppose, my trauma, but a part of, yeah, my trauma comes from not being chosen and feeling like I've not been chosen by people, by not having consistency and so on. So ending that relationship for me felt like I was failing. It felt like I was giving up on someone when that's the last thing I'd ever do to someone else. And honestly, I've looked back at that now and I'm like, thank God for the women I saw online. And this is kind of what made me want to do this podcast as well. Thank God for the women I saw online that talked about walking away, starting afresh, being in the 30s and starting the whole lives again. Because it taught me that, one, I didn't have to have a child by the time I was 30. Didn't matter how close I was to having a child, getting married, doing all that. If I wanted to start again, I could start again. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, I don't mind if we have a child soon or in the next few years. All that matters is that I'm building a life with someone that I really care about and love. But again, if I'd have stayed in that position where I was like, oh, but I'm like gonna have to start again, I'm wasting my time. Well, no, I wasted my time staying in something that wasn't serving me. And it took a very long time for me to walk away. And I'm glad I did when I did, because obviously that's what allowed me to meet G. However, I can't even go into like what would my life look like otherwise. The point is, if I hadn't taken that chance on myself and thought, oh, well, it'll take ages for me to meet someone, to hit all these milestones, it's a year into mine and G's relationship. It wasn't even a year before we moved in together. It was a few months before I knew I wanted to live with this man. It was a few months before I knew, like, there's something about you that I know you're going to be in my life for a long time. And if you keep going this way, you could be the one. And by the time that I realised that, like, I think this is my person, it was in a way where I was like, I don't even mind if G doesn't feel this way about me, or if things, like, if I change my mind. I can change my mind again. I can literally go, actually, this relationship isn't serving me anymore. Let me go and start again. I'll be on my own for a while, or I'll start dating again. I'll do all these things that I did beforehand. And I think that's where that power comes from, that you can trust yourself. You have your own back, and you know that no matter what, you will follow through on what needs to be done. Because I now look and I go, I'm now with someone that I feel, just as I didn't want to give up on someone else, I don't feel like this person would give up on me. And I don't want to give up on this person either. And when it's reciprocated, it's unreal. Like, it's so interesting to look at, not only like, does this feel like a short amount of time. I remember talking to one of the girls that works for me, and she was basically saying, because I was like, I feel like, oh, people are going to be like, oh, you're moving too soon and you're moving too fast, sorry, things are like just progressing too quickly, like, take your time. And she was like, but you need to trust how you feel. If you feel this way about this man, I think the conversation was about like falling in love with him, because again, I realised I fell in love with him before he'd even had time to think about that. And I was confident and happy saying it to him, to the point where, like, he gave me a therapy session on me falling in love with him, which is crazy to think about. But that's, to be fair, that's the moment I realise this man has my best interests at heart because he's willing to sit and listen to me. He makes me feel the safety I feel in therapy, where my therapist lets me talk things out and figure it out on my own. And then, like, she doesn't tell me what to do. And he didn't tell me what to do. He didn't tell me how to feel. He didn't say he loved me for the sake of it. He heard me, let me process it. And then when I was ready to say I loved him, I said it when I was leaving, and that was it. Like, I didn't care. So by the time he did say it back, I was used to saying it, and it'd been a few times, and he said it back, and I was like, it was the best feeling ever. So yeah, don't stop yourself. Don't block your own blessings, basically, because of time. Because this whole thing of, like, I used to think I'd be married by 24. I'm now going to be 30, and I couldn't think of anything worse. No offense to anyone that does get married, have kids, and do all that then. I just think in the place that I'm in, having to learn who I am, love myself, trust myself, be in this place where I feel so secure in myself as a person, I could not have done all that when I was that young. I could not be the person that I think my children are gonna, the person my children are gonna have, because I would have been in such a different phase of my life. Would have been triggered by different things. I'd have been maybe in relationships that weren't serving me. Like, I think about all these things. I just think, thank God that I've done it in my own time, and thank God I'm gonna do it in my own time, because yeah, how amazing is it to not worry about starting again, to even be in a position now where I'm like, I don't care if I do have to start again. If that's how I feel I need to be, I want to be happy in life. You get one life. I do not want to waste this life second guessing myself, not being with people that serve me as a person. Like, the list goes on, but yeah. So I'm going to end it there and finish with my win of the week. My win of the week is a year with me and G, and to the point where I'm so secure in how much I love this man that, of course, like, I want that, need that back. But where I used to be scared before, and the way that I used to be scared about, like, the things that I put out online, and, oh, well, what if it ends? What if, like, something bad happens, and so on? I'm not in that place anymore. I'm just happy to love this man, deal with life each day with him, deal with life on my own, and work on the things. Like, I'm saying, like, on my own, but even in, like, the business, just him giving me the consistency he has and being supportive is also helped. So yeah, my win of the week is finding this amazing man. So I'm going to end it there. And yeah, I'll be back next week. And thank you, as always, for liking, subscribing, following this journey, because I'm still loving it. I really am. And yeah, like I said, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.